I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. McCausland, can you please take roll?
Mrs. Feiss. Mr. Grisbeck.
Here.
Mrs. Janasek.
Here.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Scalzo. Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a presentation from SiteLogic, an update on the IMS project.
Okay, is this on this time?
It is, yes.
I got a clicker for you, too.
Okay, good evening. Just give you a brief update on the construction project at Independence Middle School. Okay, so again, we are still in Phase 2A, which I showed you guys last month, and we'll be in this phase until Christmas time. So we have completed all the MEP rough-ins above the ceiling. The fire protection is still ongoing at this point. They're just finishing up on the second floor. I'm going to drop down to the first floor. All the framing has been done. Drywall installation and finishing, again, finished on the second floor. They are currently working on the first floor. We've started painting the classrooms on the second floor. We've also started putting the ceiling tie wire up in anticipation of the ceiling grid and the light fixtures. The new emergency generator has been set on the exterior of the building, still needs to be wired and commissioned, and then the elevator number 1 is completed and operational. So just some quick pictures for you guys. Again, just some of the MEP rough-ins on the first and second floor. Drywall installation in the corridors, and you can see that we started painting in the corridors as well. Just a picture of one of the classrooms with the folding partition in it. Classroom, again, getting painted, and I know it's hard to see in this picture, but the ceiling wires, again, anticipating of the ceiling grid right behind the painting. This is the exterior on the outside, the generator. And last but not least, the elevator that is operational in the lobby. Yay! So I'm going to end on that note. Any questions? No?
Everything's
Okay.
on schedule?
On schedule, yep,
Okay.
yep, moving just right along. Okay? So, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation from PNC on the, as the bond underwriters.
Wonderful. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the school board and administration. It's wonderful to be here again. My name's Alicia Henry. With me tonight, I have my associate, Molly Callis. We are your investment banker. We were here last year for the Independence Middle School, and we're here tonight to start the first phase of the elementary center project. It's going to be up above, but I think you have a paper handout in front of you. We're going to fund the elementary school much in the same way that we did with Independence Middle School. However, we're going to fund this in 2 phases. The estimated cost of project is around $120 million. We're going to borrow $55 million in the fourth quarter of '23 to provide initial funding to start construction. Phase 2 could happen in 2024 as funds are needed based upon spend down and interest earnings when final costs have been determined. Similar to the Independence Middle School financing last year, we will use a multi-phase financing that wraps around your existing debt service to minimize your budgetary impact. We'll also use some capitalized interest to phase in the debt, so when the operational savings hit in fiscal year '27, you're going to have a net positive or net level debt service of all your existing debt. Your bond rating sits still at A2, which is fabulous. The timing of a bond issue takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days, which is why we're here today. PNC Capital Markets will monitor market conditions in order to provide funds that are needed by January of '24. And now that short-term interest rates are where they are, we do have the opportunity to arbitrage. So we will be hoping to spend 5% of the bond proceeds in 6 months and 85% in 3 years. However, there are some other tests that if the funds are spent more quickly, the district will be able to over-earn your borrowing rate during construction, which is the first time in 2 decades we've been able to do that. So that's an exciting, positive twist. Page 2, I want to thank Molly for getting this all on one page, but I apologize. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to go through this in a very elementary form. It doesn't make sense to look at this bond issue as a solo because there is going to be a second phase. So what we're going to do is we're going to sell the first bond issue knowing the second bond issue is coming to leave room to it so that ultimately we end up with the sage green box, which is a level debt service. So we have 2 blue boxes on the left-hand side. That's a summary of the bond issues as we know today. The 2023 bond issue will be $55 million. We've made an estimated date of 11/15, but that is just an estimate. The final maturity as it stands today would be 2048 August, which would actually be fiscal year 49, and the all-in TIC is a 475. Series of 24, again, is a big estimate of $65 million dated about a year from now. Final maturity would wrap around the 2023 bonds, and we're being conservative and estimating an interest rate of a 4.87, but our hope is at some point the interest rates start to tick down in 2024, which is why we're saving the bigger bond issue for later next year. So then if we can start with the table, the first dark blue box is the district's existing local share debt service that goes out to 2040. The middle gray boxes illustrate the estimated debt service for the 23 bonds, which wrap perfectly around your existing debt, start amortizing principal, you'll see in 2040, a little bit of a step up. And then we estimate the 2024 at the exact same time, leaving room for those, taking it out a little bit farther to 2052. And the third column is how we're utilizing the capitalized interest. To get us to the sage green box and the budgetary impact, we have 3 equal phase-ins of $1.99 million. Knowing that operationally, when the school district opens its new building, there will be a large amount of operating savings that hit once the capitalized interest has completed. Again, the overall goal was to have level annual debt service with equal-minded steps. Any questions on this page? And for those of you who are more visual rather than all these numbers, this is just a nice picture. The dark gray box is where your existing debt stands today, at just around $8 million. The orange box reflects the roll-in of the 2023 bonds on top of that. And then again, the black is the 2024, keeping the debt service level and then declining. And then finally on page 4, everyone's probably sick of the news, and everything that I said a year ago is about the same. Inflation is still what they're trying to control. The FOMC raised rates in July by 25 basis points. The next Fed meeting is actually tomorrow, where we've been told there's a 0% chance of a Fed increase, so fingers crossed. We'll learn a lot about what could happen towards the end of the year. If there's an inclination that there could be another Fed rate by the end of the year, then it's likely we will probably move rather quickly through the bond process and try to sell bonds in the month of October, because the next 2 Fed meetings will not be till November or December. And then it takes 30 days to close. So if we sell bonds by the end of October, you'll have money probably by the beginning of December.
So through either any of these bonds, we do have the ability to refinance also, like we did with our high school debt. I think you were involved in that,
Yes,
like maybe 3
correct.
years ago or so, because we found a favorable rate.
Now, that's the best thing about bonds, is that this is the maximum that you'll ever pay, and there's fixed rates, so there's no risk of it ever going higher. and you'll likely refinance these bonds at least twice.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Good question. With no other questions, does Chris have his online item?
Chris Brewer is your bond counsel, and here's to talk about the resolution that you'll be approving.
Okay.
Good evening. It's good to see you all tonight. As the district's bond counsel, our office has prepared, your solicitor's already reviewed, Ms. Cousins has reviewed, a resolution that's on the agenda for next week. It is the resolution that will authorize this indebtedness. It's a somewhat lengthy document because it does represent a long-term commitment of the district to repay this debt. It not only touches base on the Local Government Unit Debt Act, which is the statute that governs borrowings by school districts in Pennsylvania, authorizes all the things that the act looks for. It contains covenants for the payment and management and administration of the bonds, federal tax covenants, federal securities law covenants, and all that sort of thing, all in one document. Pennsylvania law really expects that your contract with bondholders is captured in this legislation, so that's, again, sort of the reason for its length. But it's consistent with the document you did and passed last year for the borrowing for independence and for the others that are on your books. So there's nothing extending your liability or increasing your obligation here. It is general obligation bond. As the PNC folks will tell you, by pledging your full faith and credit, you establish, the credit rating in the marketplace that helps to lower your interest costs because your credit rating is quite high and very, very solid. I think the thing that's probably most important is that the document, if you do take a look at it, and really you should watch the Steeler game and not read this thing, but if you do take a look at it at some point on page 5, there's a description of the project, and obviously it's the elementary school project, although there's money money denoted in here to complete independence if you should have some carryover. And as Alicia said, this is just the first part of what you expect to do. The amount is something that draws questions. Under the Debt Act being a rather old statute, it was first passed in '72, major amendments in '78, and then some tinkering amendments over the years, is a little bit out of tune with what we do in the market today. And so the idea of passing a document, putting onto your books this legislation that says we're going to issue up to a certain amount of debt. The number that PNC provided to us, and we have in here, $73,365,000, is well in excess of what we plan this first borrowing to be. The reason for that is a square peg and round hole problem in the way the Act is written. And DCD that reviews these has sort of mandated this approach, which is that the schedule for your maximum borrowing has to not only specify total maximum and total highest interest rate that you might experience, but also the maximum principal that amortizes each and every year. And that's because of how they interpreted some language in the Act about your budgetary commitments and your budgetary appropriations. So when you increase over what we think the schedule will be for your principal amortization, and as you saw with Alicia's presentation and all these numbers, the fact that we're working this debt into your existing structure, the fact that interest rates can change between now and when we sell the bonds, the fact that, I'll bore you, some bonds could sell at a premium rate, some at a discount rate, we have to just leave a cushion. Because the last thing we want to do is ask you to pass this and come back later and say, we've got the optimum bond solution, we've got great rates, and by the way, we need you to hurry up and meet again and pass something because we have to tweak the numbers. We'd rather leave plenty of cushion here. But the expectation is you're not going to borrow this much money this time around. You're going to borrow in that $55 million range. And it's just the technicality that we have to work around under the Act. And it's what we've done the last couple. Questions for me on the legal side? Happy to answer anything. And if you have something you think of later, I'm sure the same is true for PNC's presentation. Channel them through Doug, and we'll get right back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Megan,
All right,
as
thank
our
you all.
solicitor, you've reviewed this, right?
I have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next up is update from Massaro. Are you going to do it together? Okay, so both Massaro and Draw Collective.
Hi, everybody. I think we have a packet to bring up on the screen. So we are really in the home stretch here on getting the documents together. Our heads are all down, studiously working day and night to try to get the drawings and specifications ready to go. At this point in the game, we are working not only on our individual scopes of work, us and our team, but we're also working with Macero on all the front-end documents. And so just wanted to point out a couple of things relative to our approvals timeline. As you all know, that we've been going through approvals for a very long time, but we are just ever so slightly at the home stretch here. We do have the NPDES county approval and the DEP approval for the stream crossing. So those are in hand and won't hold us up. The sewer planning module was something that was another approval timeline that was kind of our longest duration that we anticipated. We've received minor comments from DEP, and our engineer HRG has supplied them with the additional information. So we're just waiting for hopefully the stamp of approval on that. One thing that will be coming along for the district and your solicitor will be the developers agreement. We did receive a draft version of that developers agreement. The piece that I think is missing is the bonding requirements that they're going to ask for, and that's based on their review of the cost estimate that was prepared for the site work. So just to get a heads up that that'll be coming through. Relative to the building permit, first of all, we know that the municipality has already indicated that they're going to issue a grading permit so that the site construction can start right out of the gate. For the building permit, they won't really review the drawings for a code approval until they're done. So we will be submitting those at the time that we go out to bid, and we would anticipate making any corrections that need to be made during the bidding process. So we don't anticipate that holding up the start of construction because the first, I don't know, 9 months, maybe 6 months of the construction process are pretty much all going to be site work. So that's kind of where we're at with the timeline. This is kind of all of us here, but I'll be the voice box here. Macero has taken a hard look at the drawings and the scope of the project and has a pulse on the contractors out in the region right now. And this breakdown of construction contracts is where we've landed. So we've got the general construction, HVAC construction, plumbing, fire protection, electrical, and then the food service equipment, which would be the kitchen equipment. So that's what we plan on putting out on the street is for the 6 prime contracts. Go ahead.
Evening, everybody. It's nice to be back. You should have in your packet this executive summary. This is a detailed list of your soft costs and then a brief breakdown of the construction costs. We have included and given to the district the 50-page cost estimate that has, if you want to know how much we're paying to grease up the foundation walls, it's in there. Yeah.
He likes it so much, he has to. Well, I mean.
But this is the really detailed, breakdown into, yards of concrete, tons of steel, and so on and so forth. I am very happy to say that when I was before you last time, I thought we were about 10% high, and then that the number would seed back, and I was close. It was about 8% high. We're about 102. But I need to stress to everybody here that's listening that this is a conservative number. We anticipate this to be the middle of the pack. This is fair market value. It's impossible for me to gauge how hungry somebody is and somebody that might live in the district that wants to be part of this project might really sharpen their pencil to do that. So we would anticipate the project coming in less than this. Our track record over 20 years at Macero is about 9% over low bid. That's on $1 billion worth of work, but the economy is nuts right now. So take that with a grain of salt. I mean, it's great to say, especially on TV, but we really, we just really feel that this is a pretty conservative approach.
Are you seeing any trends you know, like, reduction or increasing capacity in the construction industry, which may bring costs down?
We are seeing receding prices. I had a very long meeting with our operations group about 2 months ago. I don't know if you, probably nobody follows our industry, but there was a kind of a big blow up at a couple different schools around the area. So we really took a hard look at all of our unit costs. We are seeing things like roofing, glazing, and stuff like that starting to not get back to normal, but, recede a little bit. But for some unknown reason, electrical switchgear generators are almost a year and a half out, which has never been like that in my entire career. So I don't know what's holding that up. But this estimate does reflect, not low ball, game day prices. We were very conservative with our unit price, quantities. And it was great to have the model.
If you are seeing any trends, is it conceivable that you could go out and at least bid, but hold off on awarding contracts until, like you group these by functional areas of the building? Could you hold off on awarding some of the contracts and maybe try to take advantage of some further price decreases?
I think once they submit a number, that number is good for 60 days, and that's the number.
Okay.
So the only thing that I would see that Cassie brought up earlier is we cannot award any contracts until we have permits in hand. So if we're bidding and doing the permit review at the same time, that's cool. We've done that before. But if the comment period exceeds the bid period will have to be extended.
Okay.
And there's really no way to go back after they've given us a number 18 months from now and say, hey, glazing is down, how about giving us a credit? They're completely not motivated in any way legally or otherwise.
No, I was just wondering if, like how we did it with IMS, and we saw some savings with IMS because we delayed, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were able to capture some of those benefits of
we didn't delay awarding bids, we just delayed
the phase.
the project,
Right.
bidding it.
Right.
So maybe the better question to ask is there any of those 6 primes that could not go out to bid right away?
I don't know if you can do that through PDE either. I think they want to know what the cost of the building is on a specific day.
Yeah, the only one that I would even remotely suggest would be food service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That obviously is
Right.
significantly down the road, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm usually pretty loud, so.
Yeah, no, I just thought I'd ask, because we saw, I think, some benefit when we did IMS.
Right.
And if we had the opportunity to do that here, it'd be nice.
Well, if you,
My only comment there would be just as far as your timing and opening the school, because we don't have the luxury of, I mean, if you wait to go out to bid, you're waiting another year for,
Sure.
so that would be the only
Yeah.
thing, caveat that I would add to that, obviously that would make a big difference for the district.
Yeah, no, you clarified it in your description that you have to handle all these systems at once and not phase them in as a
Right.
part of the whole bid process. So,
the one really good thing is that if you look at the very last page of the executive summary and you see the bid package values, they are extremely high. So the general trades package alone is $70 million. So the companies that can bond that also have the buying capacity to get better deals.
Okay.
So we're hoping that plays in a little bit, but I was actually talking to Mascaro recently, and I think he dropped the phone when I said that the general trades package was $70 million. He was like, no, what's not the school project, our bid. I'm like, it's gonna be between $65 and $70 million, and there's like phone silence. So, but yeah, we are gonna start making our phone calls and starting to attract the bidders. I will be calling them and emailing them weekly to let them know to save this time in their bidding schedule, and that the drawings will be made available and, all of that stuff. So we're going to start getting into that. I just got back from vacation, so I'm going to be spending some time putting some dollar values to the alternates. Well, that's a really slippery slope, but we'll try to give us some sort of gauge on that.
Before we move on, I just wanted to talk about the alternates, so
Sure.
let me know if you're ready.
So that was going to be my segue into the alternates. We have about 7 listed here right now. There's probably going to be more by bid day. but obviously we'll run it past the school district and talk about the pros and cons of those ideas. But the idea is the alternates is to have a little bit more control on bid day, depending upon how the numbers, come in. So if you want to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the first three that are listed up there, which have to do with just shelling space, are really meant to be relief valves in case the bids come in well beyond what anybody anticipates. I don't think anybody has contemplated those as actual desirable outcomes, but they're just ways for us to have a fallback position should the numbers come in high. Some of the other ones, that relate to things like the playground, surfacing and equipment, those potentially have the ability to reduce the costs up front, but also potentially delay those costs. Rather than putting them into the general construction costs, maybe we wait the 2 years or whatever it ends up being to when you actually need to sign the check on the playground, and you purchase it at that time, and it just kind of potentially delays it or lets the decision-making be a little bit different. Things like eliminating some casework, that's just kind of going through and making minor reductions kind of holistically around the building. Eliminating the LGI seating, those could always be purchased separately. They're not kind of interwoven to the architecture, so if you decided that you couldn't afford them on day one, they could be purchased and installed later. And then smaller things like there's a fiber line, the data closet, the MDF room at this building is meant to be set up as kind of your secondary main hub for the district. And so we have 2 fiber lines running to the closet, but we've talked about that second line being possibly an alternate. We have a handful of other little things that are on our list that will either give you choices or will give you minor relief valves, but these were kind of the ones that we saw as being the bigger ticket items that could more dramatically impact the costs on day one.
I think that's good. It's worth repeating what you said. These aren't your recommendations. This is you preparing for possible outcomes. And so it's good to have those thought out in advance. So I think it's good.
All right. Since this is really my first time standing in front of you, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Nancy Gorgas. I'm a senior project manager with Mastero. Been with them for 15 years. I've been working with Cassie's team, working on the front ends, while Dan's been working on the estimate and the constructability review. You all should have the little more outline. This is much prettier to look at, but the most important thing, I think, for all of you is to look at when we're going to go out to bid. And that is, right now, we're gearing up to be going out to bid on the 11th of October. We'll have a pre-bid meeting. Right now, we're talking about doing that at NAMS after school is out. We'll talk to the contractors that are interested in the project, tell them about the project. We'll then have the ability to go out and walk the site with them. So it's a good way for us to kind of get them familiarized with the project, what we're expecting for the bid. And then we always establish a set bid period with a week extra. So the way we've teed this up is we'll do a 5-week bid period. We need at least 5 weeks. It's a big project. We want to make sure that the contractors have enough time. We can guarantee that they will all be asking for more. So we always at least have 1 week built in. So that's why there's 2 different dates. The big problem we have really for us is because we're right up against the holidays. So the dates we have selected is in order for us to make sure that we get this bid in before Thanksgiving. So the 14th is our first bid day if we only need the 5 weeks. And then ultimately, if we do need that additional week, we would do a bid opening on the 21st, which is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. That would give us time. We can take a look at the bids, scope those bids out, make sure that everybody has everything that they should have in their bid. Also gives us the time to make sure that we've given the board the time they need to select the alternates they would like to choose. and then ultimately with a board meeting on the 12th to select and award contracts to the contractors. With that date, we would be construction starting on the 8th of January of 2024. Any questions about that?
You used the term front end. I don't know if the board knows exactly what that
I
means.
apologize. So, as a part of the project, there's specifications that are required for every single different piece of material, product system that has to go into your building. But the first two sections are 00 and 01, and those are what we call the front end documents, and they're basically the rules of the project. The first division 0 is the rule of the bid, all of the different requirements associated to bidding the project, and then 01 is the rules of the construction project. It's one of the reasons Macero likes to be intimately involved in developing the front ends, because ultimately, as your CM, we're the ones that are making sure everyone follows those rules and guidelines. So we've been working with DRAW. We have the documents, we've sent them to DRAW. They can make their own edits because obviously they're a part of the team. They're the initial decision maker. So they have a very good part of it. These are projects we've done before together. They do their edits, and then I'll sit down with our team, make sure that we agree with their edits. If we don't, or we need to talk about them, we'll go through them together. But ultimately, the goal is for us to have a set of documents that are the guidelines for bidding the project as well as the construction, so that we're all on the same page and that we're giving the contractors the correct information to bid the project correctly.
So there is a motion that the board has to entertain here this month, that is to authorize to go to bid. And could you just speak to that briefly? What are you asking them to, what essentially
Yes,
does
so
that
the
mean?
goal here is that when everything's ready and we have the online plan room set up, we want to be able to, the board actually has to authorize that the project goes out to bid. So we're not necessarily tying you into the specific dates. It just means that you're giving us authorization that when everything's ready to go, we're okay to go ahead and move forward with the bid.
That way you don't have to have a special meeting.
Right.
Sure.
Is there another? I think that was it for us.
Is it?
Yeah.
So this, if my calendar is correct, then this will be going out to bid before the next facilities committee meeting, which is why we're asking for it this month.
Correct.
But is it reasonable to have perhaps the final drawings here for the board to preview before the bid? I don't think they've seen them for months.
Yeah, we can print a pre-final set at any time, so,
Yeah, perhaps we could have a set here that if the board wanted to stop by and review them. Thank you.
So on the 12th, do you need, for the pre-construction meeting, do you need any of the board staff, anybody at that meeting? Okay.
I mean, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, we welcome anybody
you.
who would like to join us. It's a public meeting.
Okay.
You know, it is always an interesting, it's always exciting to see, you know, how many contractors we have. You know, obviously, we want to make sure that they're getting all of the information, so anybody is welcome to join us. And that what I can plan to do is when that meeting is set and we do the invite for it, I'll make sure that Doug and Mark receive that invite and they can share with the board if that's acceptable. Okay.
So just a quick sum up, then, there are two motions the board's going to be entertaining this month. One is authorization for the Mr. McCausland and our bond counsel and bond underwriters to go to bid when the market's right. And the second is to go to bid on the project when we're ready. Okay?
Good. Any comments for anybody from DRAW or Macero? Good. Well, thank you. Thanks for the update. Are there any comments, public comments on the agenda items that we have tonight? Okay. Let's move into, anybody online, on the phone? No? Okay. Mrs. Scalzo is gone. Mr. Modrak, can you take just take these two items?
Yes, sir. Tonight in Curriculum Committee, there are two items. One, professional development, and two, approval of the fellowship program. Professional development, recommendation to allow Sharon Janasek to attend PASA, PSBA School Leadership Conference at the Kalahari Resorts in Poconos Manor, October 14th through October 17th of this year, for a cost of $1,336.52. Any questions or comments? None being, we recommend that for next consent
For the
agenda.
consent agenda? Okay.
The second item is approval of fellowship program. The Board of Directors approves the administration's recommendation to approve Dr. Sarah Shu to participate in the 2023-2024 Pennsylvania Fellowship Program for Special Educational Leaders. Approximate cost will be $2,437.88.
I just want to say congratulations on being accepted to that, and thank you so much on behalf of all of the children in our district for applying to it. It is an absolutely wonderful program, and I'm very thrilled to see you participate in that and what you bring back here to the district. So thank you. It's a lot of work too, so thank you for that.
Yeah, well said.
Also
Any
moved.
other questions, comments? Can go on the consent agenda? Okay.
So moved.
Mr. McGregor, can you walk us through the 4 items under personnel?
Sure. Tonight, there are 4 items I will be asking you guys to send to the consent agenda. Number 1, approval of extra duty responsibility program for this current year. Number 2, acceptance of resignations. Number 3, appointment of personnel. And number 4, approval of unpaid leave of absence. Any discussion, questions?
I do, and I can't get to my dang thing fast enough. And I believe this is for Mr. Puccineri. The extra duty responsibilities, not seeing every school listed, are they still coming in? Is that where we're sitting?
Yeah, so right now, most schools, like IMS, NAMS, and the high school, they try to fill all their extra duties before submitting them for board approval, so you don't have lingering.
Correct. That's what I just wanted to make sure of, because
Yeah.
we're only seeing elementary right now.
Yeah, so usually you'll start to see them come October. You'll probably get a big one. I have IMSs for next week. IMS is in, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions on these 4 items? Any objections with putting these on the consent agenda? Okay. Mr. Modrak, you have 1 item.
I know, lucky me.
D.
Facilities and Service Committee, where there's 1 item here tonight, permission to bid. The Board of Directors approves the administration's recommendation to grant permission to bid for the new elementary school project.
Any questions, objections to putting it on the consent agenda?
And just for everybody out there that'll watch this later, this is all the presentations that just went on tonight, which are all Collective and Macero, and the bonding entity also, that is all.
The bonding one
Is the bonding one next?
Is
It's
fine.
next.
Yep, bond separate.
Okay.
Approval bond.
But this is Macero and Draw Collective's presentation tonight.
Right. yeah. Mr.
I
Griesbeck,
guess-
can you walk us through the finance items?
I did have a question for Ms. Turnbull about that. Is there any reason that we need to vote on the permission to bid separately, or is it fine that it's a consent agenda item? And I guess I'll have the same question as well for the approval of bond resolution.
I think both of those can be included in the consent agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Christensen. Finance Committee agenda, we have 18 items tonight. Number 18 is only for information, though. Item number 1, September 2023 salaries and bills. Item number 2, August 2023 financial report. Item number 3, ratification of advertisement to advertise for the approval of bond resolution.
Item number 4, approval of bond resolution number 10 TAC 2023. Item number 5, payment of Independence Middle School for Phase 2 renovations in the amount of $31,056.33 to Hayes Design Group for the Phase 2 renovations at IMS. Item number 6, payment for the new K-5 elementary school to Macero CM Services LLC in the amount of $13,228.57 for the new K-5 elementary school project. Item number 7, approval of student services contract to Pathways Human Services of PA. Item number 8, payment for Independence Middle School Phase 2 renovations to Site Logic Energy Services, Inc. for a total of $1,252,960 for the Phase 2 Giza project renovations at IMS. Item number 7, resolution for the lot consolidation regarding the lot consolidation and dedication of public improvements associated with the new elementary school project. Item number 10, approval of cross-district agreement for special education. Item number 11, payment for the new K-5 elementary school project to Draw Collective for a total of $591,042 for the new K-5 elementary school project. Item number 12, approval of auction consignment agreement with Matthews & Son, Inc. Item number 13, auction listing agreement. Item number 14, permission to advertise for bids for a tracked 52-inch rotary remote controlled robotic mower. Item number 15, approval of the purchase of network equipment to purchase security cameras, networking switches, and wireless access points from the CoStar's vendor CCI Technologies at a cost of $202,894 for the Independence Middle School Phase 2 renovation project. Item number 16, purchase of interactive panels from the PEPPM, the PA Education Purchasing Program for Microcomputers, State Contractor, Assessment Technologies at a cost of $79,898 for the Independence Middle School Phase 2 renovation project. Item number 17, approval of resolution number 12, TAC 2023, opposing trespassing on district property. Item number 18, and then that's information for only. That's just our normal update on our Fund 31 and Fund 32 financials. Does anyone have any questions on any of those items or want anything held out?
Could you read those again?
Yeah. Do you need some water over there?
I do. I'd love some. Thank you.
I do have a question on number 7. Is this a new entity with Pathways? Is this a contract that was not approved at the beginning of the year? Sorry, Sarah. The Pathway Human Services, is that one new? Is it recurring that it was late, or is?
This is our 3rd time that we've renewed this contract in the last, we started it, I guess, right in the fall this time last year. And the last 2 contracts that we had, they only set it up for 6 months at a time.
Okay, that was the explanation I was looking for, because I saw it like in January, so I was a little questioning it.
This one is for a year, so I'm hoping that I didn't understand
That's a start.
that because I called them and they said, oh, your contract lapsed. And I said, okay. So yeah, the last 2 were just for 6 months. But so yes, it's the same contract that we've had previously.
And it's the same amount, or did that increase also?
It is exactly the same amount.
Okay, and then I have a question on number 10, and I don't know if that's you or it is the cross-district agreement. There is nothing attached. And I would actually like it to get to our Mrs. Turnbull, the solicitor, so that could be read.
It's the same agreement we've had. It's just updated numbers based on the state tuition costs that go up every year, so it's the same exact agreement. It was approved for many years for these students coming from.
Right, there was just no attachment, so I was a little concerned that we were where we were in process also. Thank you. Those are the only 2 I have.
Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to ask on those interactive panels, those are for classroom, right? They're not just wall displays, right?
No, they're for classrooms. They're
okay,
the interactive
yeah.
boards that they're using.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, those are nice, by the way. Much better, in 15 years than the overhead projectors that are in high school.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'd like to move items 1 through 17 to the consent agenda.
Okay, Ms. Turner, can you walk us through the policy ones? Do we have any that are?
There's-
Oh, we have one in the third.
Yes, we do. So I'm going to do this in two sets. I'm going to do number one and then take the rest of them with the
Yeah.
help of Dr. Wall. Okay. I know we talked about most of this, but just want to make sure I get it all right. The revisions to policy, the third and final reading for 006 in meetings, 201 admission for students, 216.1 supplemental discipline record, and 250 student experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instabilities. I ask that that item with those four policies be moved to the consent agenda for next week. Any other questions, concerns before I move on? Okay, discussion 200 AR3, student classification for enrollment. This goes along with the changes that we've been making with the AR. So the AR matches the new policy with PSBA
Correct.
and homelessness.
Correct. So there's quite a few ARs on tonight's agenda. As I mentioned last month, we've been moving systematically through, previously it was the policies, now we're moving through the ARs to update them all. This month, you're getting the 200 level policy ARs. Next month, it'll be the 300s and so on. Several of these were updated because of the homelessness changes in policy. One of them is a new AR that didn't previously exist, and I appreciate our solicitor's help with the development of number 5, which is 238's AR parent of record. And again, just for clarification or confirmation, ARs are administrative regulations. This is the directives the board gives to the administration to implement policy. So you're acknowledging their existence tonight, but it's not something you have to approve.
Right, so then it's 204, the compulsory attendance and unexcused absences.
Same, that relates to the homelessness changes.
218 is discipline in schools. Again, that relates to the homelessness changes. 238, the parent of record, I believe,
That's the new one.
was a little bit of a change because
You know, it's a brand new one. It didn't exist before, and
we had the policy, though, we just did not
Correct.
have an AR.
We did not have an
Okay, that's what
AR.
I needed the clarification on. We had the policy. The
Yes.
policy is reflected in the definitions in the AR also, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, we're kind of giving guidelines how staff would, interpret some of these situations. Are these adequately documented in our system so that people have access, staff have access to that information so they're
Yes,
going to be able to follow?
depending on the AR, some of them would go directly into, say, student handbooks. Some go directly to faculty handbooks, and some are for the principals, and they have administrative regulation binders that they would get these updated versions.
Okay. Then again, 251, the homelessness student procedures. 251 AR2 is procedural safeguard notice of denial of enrollment. And then it goes in with 251 AR3, enrollment complaints. Do you want to, those are two forms.
Yeah, correct. So the whole AR related to homelessness was updated, so we updated all the forms to correspond with it.
Correct. Okay. Any questions?
I guess I would just say, I know that this isn't, the full intent of the discussion of the AR, since it's mainly just for updating based on our homeless students policies, but I appreciate the conversation in the AR around discipline in schools about restorative practices. There's a lot of very good data to show that, those sorts of things decrease suspensions, decrease bullying, result in better school climate. I'd also like to comment on what was the other one? The compulsory attendance and unexcused absences. From conversations I've had, this is our general, framework that we approach, but I just encourage to steer away from, pushing students towards, court hearings and things like that over missed absences and things like that, because those generally do result in worse outcomes for the students and actually worse attendance, so you're really exacerbating the problem, but I know you know that.
Yeah, so those attendance hearings is sort of a new state regulation that we had to implement last year, and so this AR is kind of aligning ourselves with that practice. But the good news is that it's chaired by the principal, and he definitely takes good input from all interested parties before they make a decision on what to do about an attendance case.
Thanks.
Right, I was going to say that part of it is mandatory by the state. Those,
Yeah.
and those letters that go home are mandated by state, not us.
Ultimate
up here.
jurisdiction on what to do with a student and whether to escalate that to a court hearing is
Correct.
ultimately what
It's
they
in the administration's hands, not
Yeah,
ours.
I mean, I think it's worth noting, that's not the first step. I mean, I
Right,
think
exactly.
hopefully we have a full toolkit of first incentivizing people to come to school. And when that's exhausted, you're talking about a last step, not a first
Right,
step.
exactly, yeah.
I wanted to jump into the end of that conversation there about incentivizing students to come to school, something I hope that maybe we can look at in the future. It's occurred to me that if you're late to school without a technically valid by law excuse, but you come to school and you stay in school and you work all day and you didn't pretend to be sick at home, sometimes you get zeros for everything all day. And it makes me wonder, why would I as a student, right? Doesn't that disincentivize the student to actually show up, even if it's a couple minutes late? Is a thought I've been having about that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Oh, no.
That would be happening, so we need to look.
Yeah, maybe we should check into that a little. But yes, in general, all of those non-exclusionary methods of discipline is really also what the federal Department of Education is encouraging, because exclusion does not endure people to you or make them cooperative. And I also wanted to say that I appreciate the parent of record, AR, in that conversation, because I think trying to figure out which parent you need to talk to or you can't talk to, those are situations that I think we need to help staff work through. So thank you very much, and thank you, Megan, for putting that together.
Okay, anything else? So here, the only thing that goes on the consent agenda is item number 1. Everything else will not even appear on the agenda next week, correct?
Correct.
So under other, I can just take those because they're quick. So we will put the evaluation for superintendent on the approval. We have to do that once a year. It's a part of the board responsibility. Dr. Walsh's review was satisfactory, but we need to make that a part of the record that we approve that next week. And then PSB officer elections. So, Mrs. Janicek, maybe you can just take this and kind of explain, the process here that we're going to be asked to do.
So at our next voting meeting, we will be voting on these elections and everything except the last column, the Forum Steering Committee. All of the other positions that are up, the number of people running is the number of seats available, so there isn't really a choice. So those are the positions that we need to vote on, and those are the candidates who are running for them. The Forum Steering Committee has something to do with the board secretaries group. And I think that only, from what I was reading, only the board secretary can vote on them, is what it said in my PSBA.
It is interesting
That
that we
was
have
what
one
they
choice
said.
that we have to vote for. So is
That was what they said when I read it also, because I
Right.
wondered what the steering committee,
I checked on their
was all
website,
about.
and it said that that is a vote that only the board secretary makes, and it is for the board secretaries forum steering committee. So I guess Doug gets to vote.
We'll put this on the consent agenda, and we'll remove the forum steering committee since I make that vote anyway.
Right, you make the vote. And I don't know those people because I'm not involved in the board secretary. And thank you.
So this motion, just to be clear, is authorizing Mrs. Janicek to vote for these candidates on the board's behalf, because we get one vote, so she'll cast it.
No, I think
We actually,
vote.
you vote, and then I will fill out it online what your vote was. So that's how it works.
Yes.
But I'll do that after you vote.
The other thing is November 4th, I believe, is when PSBA does a virtual voting meeting about its priorities for the upcoming year and its legislative efforts. And that's where I will do what Mr. Walsh was talking about, vote for us. Although I think other people are allowed to attend, so if anybody would like to join me, it's a lot of fun if you like policy.
Okay, so we'll put that on that will go on the consent agenda also. That is the end of our committee items. Next topic is any public comments on anything related to school business. We have 2 minutes. Anybody online?
Nobody online.
Okay, any board comments?
I know we'll hear it next week, but there was a PTA meeting, and the subcommittee for building facilities also put out a QR code for several days during the Community Day. And it went till the Tuesday. We are working with, that subcommittee is working with the administration to put that up for a couple more days online and at the municipal building. We've just got to work with the municipal staff to get that up and running. It'll be the same way. You can go up and snap it and go from there. So that will be up again before mid-October. We just need to get all that done. Like you said, we'll get some reports and figure it all out.
I guess I can provide.
Mr. Modrak, you don't have anything else, sorry,
No,
to
you're
add
good. Go
to that
ahead.
subcommittee?
I guess I'll add my DE&I task force update too. We met last week. The DE&I task force will now be called the Equity, Inclusion, Belonging. I know that's confusing, but that is kind of the route that PDE's gone. So their big thing is fostering student belonging, and we wanted to make sure that, you know, we named the group accordingly so it really jived with everything that PDE is doing. So you'll see that updated on the website so that it kind of makes sense and is consistent. I know that that creates a contradiction with the DE&I goal that we have in our strategic plan, but just know that, you know, the Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Task Force is going to attempt to further those goals. Main focus of the meeting was creating a new survey for new members, especially students. We lost a lot due to graduation this past year, and we also lost a few other members as well, so we created a new survey for people who would like to join. Expect to see that on social media in the next couple of weeks. Also, we'll have a couple flyers for students at school so they can just scan the QR code and apply if the Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Task Force excites them and they'd like to further its goals.
With well, I realize, as you said, it's mostly renaming, but is the scope starting to have more overlap with, say, student experience or anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with student experience, yes. I don't, you know, I haven't really been involved in the student experience efforts in the past, so I can't say to what extent they've also encompassed DE&I or equity, inclusion, and belonging efforts, so I can't really speak to that part, though.
Yeah, but there are quite a few goals that appear in both categories. So they are pretty tightly connected to enhancing the student experience and sense of connectedness or belonging.
Are you done?
No, you got it.
Only because if you are interested, you would probably appreciate planning for it now. But as the PSBA liaison, you should have received an email today letting you know that the first week of October is PSBA Advocacy Week. So you can participate virtually if anyone's interested in going to Harrisburg in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. From here, you're welcome to. I don't happen to be over there that week, so I will be virtual. But you should have gotten an email today. If you didn't get it or you can't find it, please let me know. I'm happy to send it to you. PSBA will work with you to make sure you're aware of what the PSBA issues are that they would like you to meet with your legislators. And they'll set up those meetings virtually and help you with talking points of how to advance the agenda for public education for students in our state and what those kind of priorities are and things that they'd like to talk to legislators about. So if you need any help with that, please feel free to let me know.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.